Today I'm going to talk about how do you become appealing to a company or a client and they don't, like, who's this guy? I mean, he's not going to be what we need. How do you convince them otherwise, okay? Or how to live the impossible dream in about 2,000 easy steps, okay? So what I want to talk about today is being passionate about something you really love and figuring out a way to get there. What I'm going to show you is my path. Okay, but I think you'll learn from it because it'll tell you a way that maybe you can find your path to the dream you love. So people say I have a great job, and they're right. You know, I have a great life, great job, wonderful family, and, you know, I manage rock stars, I work on internationally released albums, and I'm working on some Hollywood films right now. I've written thousands of articles for all kinds of publications that have been read all over the world. And I've traveled all over the world because of my work, even though I've stayed here. I now teach music business courses at 2 universities, here at Nazareth University and also at the University of Rochester, but I can only do 1 day a week because I travel so much. I've done it all while living in Webster, New York, which is hardly the entertainment capital of the world. But here's how I made it happen. I was born in 1956 in a suburb of Irondequoit. My dad was a successful attorney. My mother was an artist who later worked also in his firm. And I have an older sister and older brother. Everything was fine until February 9th, 1964. You see, that's when the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show. You see, I was 8 years old, and like 73 million other households, we watched it as a family. I think we had TV dinners at the time. So from that point on, I was gone. That was it. I was done with Little League. I was done with G.I. Joes and toys and all that. All I cared about was music. You know, I wanted to be a drummer, and my dad, being an attorney, negotiated a settlement and said, you take the piano lessons your mother wants you to take, and I'll buy you a drum set. So, and I played in bands and all that. And I even experienced Beatlemania firsthand. It was in August of 1966. The Beatles were about to play their second time at Shea Stadium. My mom and dad took me to New York because my dad went to an American Bar Association convention across the street from the hotel where the Beatles were. So we get there and there's 5,000 screaming girls that clogged the whole, I think it was 55th and Avenue of the Americas. And my dad found out it was because the Beatles were playing the next day, and one of the policemen said to my dad, come down about 6 o'clock at night and you'll see them leave the building. And sure enough, we saw them come out, and they got into an armored car, which was then attacked by about 30,000 girls, pounding, trying to get in there. So it was incredible. So I never got to see the show, but I did get to jam with them at the Madame Tussauds Wax Museum right up the street. But soon after that, my dad, who was pretty politically involved with the city, was appointed as a commissioner of the Rochester War Memorial Arena, which is now the Blue Cross Arena here where we are. And you know, he started taking me to the circus and the Royal Lipizzan Stallions and all that. And then in 1965, he said, you know, there's a rock band coming to town called the Beach Boys. Your sister wants to go. Do you want to go see them? I said, yeah, I'm 8 years old. I had seen the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. I said, yeah, I definitely want to go. And he had all access. We'd go backstage. I got to meet all the artists all the time. And it was a great experience for a young person like myself because I could really see the nuts and bolts of how it worked. So for nearly 10 years, he took me to see and meet every incredible rock star that came through. I met Jimi Hendrix. These are all pictures I took or my dad took. Led Zeppelin, James Brown, The Who, Alice Cooper, Chicago, many others. But I didn't just meet the artists, because you couldn't always just walk backstage into their dressing room after they played. They were full of sweat. They wanted to dry off. So I'd be sitting in the hallway, and a road manager would come up or an agent would come up and like, who are you? What are you doing here? And I got to talk to these guys. I found out how they did their job, and I was fascinated. So I was in high school at Irondequoit High. I worked in radio. I had a job at the House of Guitars, which was a great place to be, as you know. I was accepted into Syracuse University's Newhouse School of Communications, and I figured, well, I'll work in media, and I'll be around music, and I'll be around celebrities, and that'll be great. I kind of transitioned more from electronic to print because I was a good writer. I could do that. At Syracuse, I ran the concert board with a guy named Rob Light, who now is the head of CAA, which is the biggest agency in the world. After college, I took a job at Gannett, and I applied to them as a journalist. They said, well, we don't have any openings, but you got an advertising background as well. Why don't you work in our advertising department? And I learned a lot there, and that was great. It also gave me a lot of time to develop my music stuff. So I'm 22 years old, and I'm out of college. I'm working at the newspaper, and I'm saying, I got to go to New York. I got to go to LA. I got to go to Chicago. I got to go to London. That's where the music industry is. But then it dawned on me. In fact, my father mentioned it to me. These tours never opened in New York or LA. They'd always play Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Albany, and then they'd play Madison Square Garden. They wanted to get the lighting cues right. They wanted to get, everything together. So what ended up happening is I was it. I'm out of college now. I'm writing for some national publications. I'm the only guy in this town that had that kind of connection. So, they would come to Rochester, and I would get an interview in the afternoon, and I would get these guys before they went to New York City, which was really crucial to getting me where I had to go. So I interviewed everybody I could that came through the area. These are some of my stories. I did that cover story on McCartney and his wife for us, and wrote a lot for Variety, which is the biggest entertainment magazine in the world. So my stories were getting published, and they were read by thousands of people, as well as a lot of industry people. By the time I was 30, I had interviewed Paul McCartney, George Harrison, Ringo Starr, Joni Mitchell, David Bowie, Bruce Springsteen. I mean, the list goes on, Al Green, Fleetwood Mac. And it wasn't always from Rochester, because they would fly me into New York to do a Beatle interview or something like that, because I was now writing for the magazines they wanted to be in. These are some pictures of the people I've done: David Bowie, Fleetwood Mac. There's maybe Springsteen, Joni Mitchell, who's my idol. I love her. Sting. I'm interviewing Stevie Wonder there, Peter Gabriel. I got to go to a dinner with Aretha Franklin. And then I got to work with Little Richard. I started working in television. I worked for the E! True Hollywood Story and a lot of MTV behind the music stuff. And I helped produce a documentary on Little Richard, which is great. So as my work as a music journalist developed, I started moving into other areas of the business. But, if I had a shot to do a Taylor Swift or Drake or Harry Styles, I would still do that. But by the late 1980s or early 1990s, the floodgates started to open. I was doing a lot of work for record labels, doing a lot of work for developing, the CD box sets. I would write the liner notes and help them pick the tracks and license them. And I produced a live radio show called the King Biscuit Flower Hour for a couple years. And then in the late 90s, mid-90s, I started getting asked by some of these groups, which we now call classic rock groups, would I like to manage them or be part of their management team. In 1998, I was admitted to the Recording Academy as a voting member, and I was also placed as a leader in their advocacy division. We go to Congress, and we've helped legislate the Music Modernization Act to try to get these guys paid for stuff they weren't getting paid for, the royalties that they're not getting from streaming and all that. We've gone to try to correct that wrong end of it. The other thing that I've done too is some of my artists have other fields that they work in. I have a famous artist who's also a great artist, graphic artist. And basically he's a drummer. He plays with drumsticks that have LED lights in them, and when he hits them, they change color. So they film him in the dark with cameras, shoot him, and they leave the aperture open, so every time he hits the drum, the colors create this wild psychedelic thing. So I developed a program where on nights off on tour, where, we're in Cleveland and we get there the day before the show, I would find what I call an uber fan, or a really wild fan of the group he was in, and I would say, how would you like to have this rock star come to your living room? They said, what? I said, well, he's got this art that he developed, and what we'd like to do is go around to fans' homes and do an art show in their living room, and you pick the charity, and we'll give a large portion of the money to the charity. So I've raised about $50,000 or $60,000 in the last couple of years for PETA and Habitat for Humanity. We did the Camp Good Days and Special Times and stuff like that. So we give a portion. They invite their friends. They buy the art. The artist is there, talks about it. So, you know, we've tried to give back a little bit. So everything for me came full circle in 2001 when Ringo Starr's people called me up and said, hey, he's doing Ringo Starr and his all-star band where he gets all famous people to tour with him. Would you like to be involved? Could you help us put the band together? And would you like to be involved in the tour? So to go from watching the Beatles and Ed Sullivan to finally working for a Beatle, that was the highlight of my career. I mean, we'd be sitting around having breakfast and he'd say, oh, the day we cut Day Tripper, I remember, like, are you kidding me? So that was pretty cool. So here's the real kicker. I did it from here. I did it from the, 53rd largest city in the US and all that. Certainly not the entertainment capital. And I did that really for my family. I've been married for 43 years. We have 3 grown sons. We're married. We have 6 grandchildren. And I didn't miss Little League games. I didn't miss the Scouts meetings. I did what I could when I could. And that was all the difference in the world to me. That was how I got to where I wanted to get career-wise and still not have it screw up my personal life. So what is the moral of this story? If you want a dream job, you kind of got to do the following. Number one, you got to love the field you're working in. Okay, because if you don't love what you do, you know, they say, if you love what you do every day, it's like going fishing, it's fun, you know, all that stuff. And that's true. Don't be motivated by money. I was never motivated by money, probably because I lived in Rochester, New York, and I didn't need to make $500,000 to live comfortably. Be motivated by the work, by the passion, what you can do for the community. That's what should motivate you. Learn to be great, not just good. You got to be great at many different things in your field. Okay, I am now the go-to guy. People call me from all over, bands. I mean, I've worked for Journey, I've worked for all kinds of people. They call me up and they say, hey, we need a place to rehearse, or I need a lighting guy, but I can't spend more than $1,200 a week. Do you know? They just know that I can get the job done because I'm good in a lot of different areas. And that didn't, because I wasn't born with that. I worked at that to get to there. Network. Do it till the cows come home. And, you know, you got to be persistent, but don't be annoying. There's a big difference. Okay? I would always call somebody and say, you know, I'm trying to get something done, right? I'd say, hey, I know you're looking for a lighting guy. There's a guy in Niagara Falls who's really good. I think I can get him at a good price. Do you want me to call him or not? Oh, and by the way, you know that thing I asked you to do? So I would work what I needed after I offered them something. And that, I was never known as somebody who annoyed them. I was known as somebody that's like, okay, he calls a lot, but he's always got good suggestions. So you have to show them that you've got something that they need, obviously. But always remember to thank the people you work with. Even if they don't give you the answer you want or the job you want, you got to think, I don't burn any bridges. I think maybe one time, and it was only because the guy was ripping somebody off. Okay? You know, I'm working now with people that 3 years ago I wanted to choke. Okay? But we come to an understanding. They get what they need, I get what I need, and it's worked out. Okay. Learn to balance your work and your family. Because if you don't do that, you know, people say, wow, you've been married 43 years and you're in the entertainment business? That's got to be a record. Well, yeah, you know, it's all just how you, it's all the yin and yang, how you do it. In the words of my good friends in the band Journey, don't stop believing. Okay? Hold on to that feeling. That is, I mean, true words have never been spoken. And it's really funny because the guy who wrote that was a guy named Jonathan Cain. And he was in a group called the Babies, which eventually he went to Journey. And he was really down on his luck. The Babies were falling apart. And he called his dad. He said, I don't know if I'm right for this business. And the father just told him, don't stop believing. Just, you got to hold on to that dream. And he wrote that song. And I'll tell you right now, if I had 10% of the publishing on that song, I'd be living in, you know, some tropical island right now. So, anyways, That's all I have to say. I hope I've been useful and helpful to you guys, and thank you for having me.